Hi everyone, so this is an extra for you. It's currently mid-September and I'm doing this because I thought, you know what, it's worth doing as an actual video, even though it's horrid and I hate in some respect for people to know about this, but at the same time it needs to be talked about. So today we're going to talk about fleas. Oh yes, start scratching now. Okay, so let's talk about fleas and what they are then. There are 4 stages to the fleas, which I've learned over the last month. And again, I'm no expert. This is just what I've learned having had a reasonably serious outbreak of fleas. This is not an infestation. This was not at that level, thankfully. But it was enough that it's worried me, and it's been quite a lot of work to try and make sure we broke that cycle. What is the cycle? Well, there's 4 parts, as I've mentioned. If we start from the adult flea, it literally goes from adult flea to them feeding off the host, the warm-blooded host, feeding off their blood. Whoa! And then from there, they will poop their what we call the flea dirt, which is essentially dried blood. From there they will then lay eggs in a presumably in a similar area to the flea dirt. The eggs will then hatch into larvae. The larvae are what eat the flea dirt, which has been laid by the adult, almost like host biltong. The larvae are tiny little 2 or 3 millimeter long things that look a little bit like millipedes, except for they're a grey whitish colour. They're minging, they're horrid. So once they're ready and fattened up, they will then go into what we call the pupae phase, which is kind of like a dormant phase, like I think presumably a bit like a butterfly or something going into their chrysalis phase. They'll go into this pupae phase, which I believe is like a holding period. And then as and when, from what I understand, as and when they're ready to start the cycle again and they feel that there's an area and they've got a host in mind, they'll rehatch out of this pupae as an adult flea to begin the cycle again of feeding off their host, pooping flea dirt, laying eggs, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're talking about when we say we're breaking the cycle. We're trying to break the cycle of that. So even if you don't find fleas on your animal, physical adult fleas on your animal, it could well be that actually there are eggs there or larvae there. So one day you might find there's no fleas on your animal, then the next day there's fleas, then the next day there's none. And this is for why. So let's talk about what we can do to mitigate these fleas and stop the cycle. So there's various different ways. The very first way is to treat your ferret with something like this, which is a pipette of Frontline for cats and ferrets. Now, I am going to put a caveat in here that you must take on board. I treat mine with Frontline because I know their health, I know their well-being. However, if you have any ferret that you're in any concerns about in terms of its health, its well-being, if it's an older ferret, if it's a younger ferret, if it's a fatter ferret, if it's a smaller ferret, especially if you only have a few ferrets, I highly recommend you go to the vets and they will actually do a proper health check on that animal, check how it is, check the weight of it, and give you a medication specifically for that animal. And I fully recommend you do that, and I would do that on any old ferrets or small ferrets. Thankfully this time I didn't have any particularly old ferrets in. Otherwise, I would treat my cats generally with this Frontline, and I'll have a full box of it that I'll show to you another time. So that's the first sort of topical application to the animal to stop the cycle, to start killing off the fleas when they bite, to hopefully help stop the eggs developing. So we get to the stage of actually combing down our ferrets. So I have, and I'll do this as show you this in greater detail in a minute in a different cut, but I have a flea comb, and I really like these metal ones with the long tongs on them. They're much better for getting through the fur and hopefully for catching any fleas. So firstly, make sure it's clean and reasonably dry, and again I'll go through my little setup that I have here. Let me put my glasses on so I can see the darned things. Right, so I've got my fertile here, and I'm literally going to go through, and they do not like it particularly, but I'm literally going through, and I can see there's a flea there. So I'm literally going through quite deeply into his fur. If you can see that, I'm really running it along, and there's another something over in there, so we'll get that out. I wonder where that flea went. I'll have to... Yeah. So I'm really giving it a good go. As you can see, this is the same ferret. I'm going over and over him again, and I'm going right through the length of him. I'm making sure that the comb is really catching on all of his fur, and all I'll say is on a boy ferret, literally be very careful when you're going down here, because they have a bone as part of their penis, and if you catch that on the way down, that's going to really hurt them and could be quite dangerous. So when you're going down, brushing through them like this, just be very careful of the penis and don't catch it, because they'll not thank you at all. So I've kind of done all of that. The only bit I now haven't done, I'm trying to go under his arms a little bit as well, and the only bit I haven't done now, I'm just going to clean that off, is his scruff. So I'm going to do his scruff right now. There's a little bit more flea dirt come out of there, and again I'll show you that in a bit. Where that flea's gone. You can't be too squeamish about the fleas at this point either. You know, like, where's that flea gone? I mean, I've tried to get it, but the buggers are nasty. Yes, I know. I know. Sorry, I'm not sure I'm doing that in front of the camera. Okay, alright, you've had enough. So I'll get the other one. So that's the one. Now, it could be that the flea is on me. So what I will do is, once I've finished them, I will literally drop what I'm wearing into the washing machine. Let's get this moved across a little bit.
There's no need to
So we've got the lovely Natasha here, my beautiful assistant, helping me and getting me another ferret here. So this is Barry and Archer. So I just had Archer, so this is now Barry, and I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going through quite deeply, and as I'm going, I'm keeping an eye on the comb, so if I see one, I can just drop it straight in. Now, Barry really does not like being brushed, as you can see, but so there's quite a lot of flea dirt in there. Can you see there's little bits of, come on you, there's little bits of dirt and bits and pieces. I don't know if you can see that in there. So again, I will do a close-up of that from a different ferret in a minute, of what that looks like. So I'm getting the flea dirt off as well, because my reasoning is, if I've understood it correctly, by getting the flea dirt off, I'm giving the larvae less to feed on. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but you know what, this is my reasoning, and it can't harm it, you know, at all. So I've got him scruffed now, so I'm going to go down a little bit more. You can see I'm really doing this quite a lot. This is not a once over, I'm doing this quite a few times over the same area to try and really get them if they've run, if any of these fleas have run anywhere. Excuse me, itchy nose. I know, my boy, I know you're still brave. Do you want it? Just how does it taste? Not very good? I know, my boy. Alright, Bazza. Right, I think we'll call him a day as well. So that's two of them brushed. Okay, so this is super magnified. I've got my magnification-y thingy on, but that's one of the fleas, dead. This is, I'm not sure if this is these little bits here, if they are eggs or if it's flea dirt. Let's see what else. It's such a magnification on here that I can't actually see. I think there's another one there. Is that the same one, or is that just a bit of dirt? I think that's just a bit of dirt. That there, I'm not sure if that's a, hold on, I'm going to have to hold my, oops. So I'm not entirely sure if that's a pupae or not. Where's the other one? So there's two there, and what's that there? So I've got that one, hold on a minute, I've got that one there and that one there. Ah, yes, so that's... God, they're just such nasty things. So that's like an adult one, and from what I know, that's, you can see the difference in size between them, and I think this is more of a young one, and these are the ones that really, really jump. So there you go anyway. So we've talked about the topical treatments such as Frontline, and I think I've briefly mentioned the flea wipes, but which I've not tried but I'd be interested in. So that's topical to the animal. You can also get a spray which is topical onto the animal as well, and those are more the prescription ones. Please don't really try any of the less expensive flea treatments. Some of them are known to burn the ferrets, and that can be very bad. So do make sure you're using a reasonably reputable brand. At the end of the day, if you consider what you're doing is you're putting a chemical into the bloodstream of your animal. You are medicating that animal, so be very careful with what you're doing. Don't be blasé just because you think it's on the skin, because it isn't. It's going into the bloodstream. So not for the animal itself, but for the home, for furnishings, there's this Indirex Defense Spray. Currently it's quite expensive. It was about £20, and then it's gone up to like 30, 40, 50 pounds because there's quite a lot of problems with fleas at the minute, so people have been fleeced, I think. But I found Pet Drugs online do it quite well, and you can get it with a deal, a really good saving deal, with a packet of Frontline for cats and ferrets or a packet of Frontline for dogs. And this, you do not use it around animals. Do not let your ferrets inhale this, so do not use it in the room where your ferrets are. However, you can use this around the house on soft furnishings that you can't wash, so things like bed mattresses, heavy rugs, carpets, things like that. And follow the instructions, spray it on, make sure it dries, give it time, air the room out, and this is great stuff for killing the little beasties. And if you continue on with this, that will help you break the cycle if any of the fleas or the eggs are in your rugs, on your carpets, or on your mattresses. So this here's the flea trap. It's a really quick thing, and it's actually quite canny. It's got a bulb which is a normal, not a halogen, what's the word? It's like a normal tungsten bulb, is that the right one? That actually heats up, and the idea is that this here is a sticky mat, and it's like a paper fly trap but in a circle on there. And what happens is the bulb will heat up that paper so that it's even more sticky, and it also, I think, gives off quite a sweet flavour which entices the fleas in. So it's not going to do out for your eggs or for your pupae or larvae necessarily, but it is going to catch some of the ramblers. So again, it isn't something I'd use on its own, but it's been quite useful just to catch some of the ones that are just around and about. And I think if you're using it in that respect, it's okay. It was about, this whole thing was about £30. It came with mixed reviews. Some people complaining that the bulb went, but I think because it's a filament bulb, you've got to be gentle with it. You can't move it when it's warm, you've got to let it cool off. And some other people were whinging that it didn't catch any fleas, and I'm like, well, that's good, because that means you either didn't have any in that room, but I've tried it in different rooms, so I moved it around into different rooms until I found it was actually trapping fleas. So it's cost me, I think it was about £20, and then I bought the £10 of extra sticky mats for it and an extra bulb, which I'm glad I did, because it was on for literally a week or two constantly, which burnt the bulb out understandably. So
I was able to just whack a new bulb in. So I think it's worth it if you're struggling with them, to help just catch even more with the spray. It's a belt and braces approach.
So another thing to think about is the bedding for the ferrets themselves. So currently we have minimised the amount of bedding. So normally they'd have a good amount of bedding and a hammock in the cage. Currently they are down to pretty much one bit of bedding for all of them, because that bedding is getting changed daily, which means there's a lot of washing going on, and I'm washing it for an hour at least on a good 60 degrees. I believe they die off a lot at a cooler temperature, but for me, belt and braces. So everything's getting washed daily, so that any fleas, any larvae, any eggs, anything that's coming off onto the bedding is getting washed off to again try and help break that cycle. Furthermore, given the amount of animals I have, because I have my own 12 ferrets plus the boarders, I am actually at this moment in time, as of I think it's about the 18th of September 2023, I've currently got mine in a kind of a lockdown where I'm not really allowing them to run very much. This is not ideal, and I certainly would not do this for a long period of time, but for me it's a way of trying to break the cycle where ferrets aren't running in the same area as other ferrets and potentially picking up the larvae or the eggs that have been dropped on the floor or that move between bedding or anything like that. It's a way to try and help break that cycle. This is not a long-term solution, and this is not something I would do as a long-term measure. Let me make that absolutely clear. I cannot emphasize that enough. I am not caging my ferrets up for long periods without exercise. This is a mitigation to stop a flea epidemic occurring.
Okay, so this is my little table of how I work it. I have a cup of hot, almost boiling water, and I have a cup of cold water because I'm using a long tongued flea comb, which really means it'll get to the thickness of the coat and really catch those little nasties. But because it's metal, once I've dipped it in hot water, I don't want to be burning my animal's skin, so I dip it in the cold water to cool it down again, and then I have a little towel handy to then dry it off again and get any of the last bits of dirt off it, so I can do that to get it off again, ready for the next ferret. So this is how I work. I'm sitting down, I've got my glasses on, dop, 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 and we'll have a look into here and you will see quite how many. So in there, I'm going to do a close-up with a different camera in a minute with a magnifier on so you can see these little beasties, but that's what you're looking at. Little bits of fur, there's bits of flea dirt, there's bits of odds and sods, but there's also some dead fleas in there as well, thankfully. And this is the cold water one, which is a lot clearer, but occasionally you'll get stuff in there as well. Well, here you go. This is off one of the girls, my cats. I'll do a close-up, super close-up of them with my other camera on in a bit. And then when I'm finished, when I've done it all, that comb goes deeply into a little pot of disinfectant. This is actually Mistral, which is good for like kennel clean kind of thing. It's an antibacterial, it's safe for ferrets, and that will go in there again until I'm ready to use it, when I'll rinse it off and start all over again tomorrow. So as I'm doing him, I'm looking to see what's coming out, but at the same time, if anything comes out that looks big enough to be a flea, which can be quite small, you'll find, I don't even bother looking at it. I just drop it straight into the hot water, because by the time you've tried to have a good look to decide what it is, the little beggars can have really just jumped off elsewhere, as you probably saw with one of my other ones that I just did earlier. So literally anything that I see that looks black or at all like it might be a flea, I'm not even hesitating, straight into the hot water with it, and then I'll assess from there once I know that it's dead, whatever it was, whether it was meant to be dead or meant to be alive. Otherwise they will just jump around and have your life.
And make sure you really go through the scruff and look behind their ears properly, because that's an area that they can build up, you know. And don't forget to look under the armpits and the bums as well, and not so much the tails, especially if they've got a ratty tail, but you know, check in there, which is why I tend to brush the scruff forward, because it's easier for me to see if there's anything in there. And then don't be afraid to scruff them. Do not be afraid to scruff them. Literally just the bit here that's extra, hold on to it and grab it like that. It does not hurt them. They look, come, he's just Sleepy Ben, aren't you, my boy? So, and again, don't go just once through them, go through them a few times, so if there's any that are just trying to run for cover, with any luck you catch them. Right, that's another one done then. Right, there's another one. So straight into the pot. That went straight in. Literally, I saw it, I didn't, other than just seeing something which I did recognise as a proper flea because it was quite big. So once I saw that as I was combing it through, straight out, straight into the hot water before the darn thing jumped. The really dark black ones, the small black ones, are the ones that seem to jump more once they're more adult and more of a sort of a couple of mil long and more of a reddy colour. They don't seem to jump quite as quickly, but you know, don't give it any leeway. Like, you know, this is not something you're going to invite into your house, so I think that's just a little bit of just a little bit of fluff and a little bit of dandruff almost off him. But as you can see, by doing that, I can see a bit more into the fur to see what's going on in there. And if I find an area which seems to be more a bit more flea dirt in a specific area, I'll go in and try and clean that off just with a bit of warm water and my finger or something like that, again just to try and discourage anything, and in case there's eggs in there, because again I don't really understand it too much. So I've done that. I'm going to do a little bit more on him, make sure I've got his ears, going under his armpits. Right, Bodgy Bum Bum, I think you're almost done. Should we call it a day? There we go. So bearing in mind this time yesterday when we did a brush through of all the ferrets, of which we've currently got 15 in and 3 cats, the brush through only produced 2 fleas at all, and we did a really good brush through. We tried to get everything out we could. Today we've had at least 7 or 8 fleas from the ferrets, so this gives you an idea of the cycle, of trying to break the cycle. And it's not that we necessarily missed them yesterday, it's that they've either jumped from somewhere else. You know, it's not that we didn't miss them on the animal, it's that they've jumped from somewhere else, or these are newly hatched, I don't know, or that because they were smaller they didn't go through the comb. So there's a lot of reasons, which is why really if you're going to break it, you've got to be really on top of it. And we are brushing once a day. If we were going to be really hardcore, we'd brush twice a day, but I physically, I think it would break me right now with everything else. So because there's a lot of washing going on, so it's about once a day kind of blitzing the area, cleaning out the cage. If you've got like litter, wood litter or anything like that in the cage, I would suggest, it's a nightmare, but I would suggest cleaning all of that out as well, if you can, or mitigating it by making it a smaller area where you've got wood litter so that you can do it. So then, there we are. It's taken a while, but we've got through them all, and we've just done all the cats as well. 3 cats, 16 ferrets, and we've got a few more fleas today than we did yesterday, but I feel as though we're on a winner. I feel as though we're getting there. So yeah, I hope you found this video of use. The last thing I'm going to say is that now the towel that I've used to dry off the flea comb will be going in the washing machine along with all the bedding, which isn't dirty, it's just a day old, and actually I'll be taking my top off, my dress off, and that will go straight in the washing machine as well. So I'm kind of going through 2 lots of clothing a day quite often, and I'll be changing my bedding again tonight probably, just to try and stop this cycle, and it's about breaking that cycle. Thankfully, as we go into cooler weather as well, that's slowing the little blighters down as well, which is I'm grateful for. The other week we had quite a lot of very warm weather, and it was such a struggle. They were just everywhere, and it was hard. So I've got one last thing to show you, which is a flea trap that I bought, which is pretty cool. It's pretty good, but I wouldn't use it on its own. It's good to just catch some more of the little blighters, but that's all. It's not something to be used on its own, I don't think. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you found it of use. Not everything I say is cut and dried and for definite. This is my journey of what I've learned using my friend Google, and just having worked with them for the last 3 weeks of trying to get us free of fleas. Take care, guys. I hope this doesn't ever happen to you. As I say, it could be so much worse, so for that I'm very grateful that it is only fleas. All the best. Bye.